Hey ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to my 10 big mistakes that I was making in LEGO Fortnite. After nearly 50 hours in the game already, I've gone through pretty much everything there is to do, and there's definitely some things that I really want to tell you so that you don't make the same mistakes. 10 rough big tips encompassing all sorts of things like combat, farming, being able to explore, and how to build and unlock items. Leave a like if you find it useful. Let's go. LEGO Fortnite's obviously procedurally generated, so spend some time scouting out the landscape and see if you can find the perfect location for a base. The perfect location is at least maybe one cave in the grasslands, and even better if you find a desert very close by. You'll be spending a good amount of time in the grasslands learning how to play the game, but you'll be soon quickly moving on to the desert, and you'll be spending a lot of time gathering resources, especially in the desert caves. So the perfect option or place would be building your village in the grasslands, but you've got the desert extremely close by, and hopefully a grass cave and a desert cave very close. So remember though that if you go ahead and put your village square in the desert, it'll unlock brand new blueprints, and likewise if you put it inside the snow biome, you'll also unlock new blueprints. You'll unlock the manor house or castle build sets by building your village square up in the desert, and if you go ahead and build in the snow, you'll unlock the Shogun Japanese building sets. Building up in the grasslands will unlock the more modern looking houses. This is definitely something I wish I knew. Also the shore, if you build there, you don't actually unlock anything at the moment. So make sure it's either grass, snow or desert. Sadly, you can't demolish your village square and take it with you to another biome just to place down and immediately get access to a whole bunch of new recipes. When you destroy it, you'll get some basic materials back from the very first time that you placed it down, but any subsequent levels that you upgraded, you will not get back. But don't panic if you accidentally destroyed it, which can happen, or you just want to move it slightly within that area. If you actually go and place it down again, it will have the levels, but only within that yellow cone that your base is actually available and protected. It seems to remember for a few days, hence why there's a few issues at the moment where NPCs don't necessarily move from one village to another, so make sure you always destroy any beds from one village if you want them to come move to your next one. That can take up to 5 days, but yeah, I went and placed another village square, and yeah, it didn't have the levels at all as you just saw. But as soon as I came back and placed it almost in the same spot, it got all of its levels again. So no, you can't cheese and go and place it down in different biomes to unlock brand new blueprints. A lot of the enemies do not like each other, so make sure you lure one over, whether it's wolves or maybe some of the rollers. Sometimes they will fight each other, so it's definitely worth causing a little bit of chaos. The best way to deal with rollers is to block their charge attack like that, and it puts them on their back, and you can go in and get some extra big combo hits. You saw the yellow numbers pop up there, that's because you hit them on their weak points. More enemies have weak points, although not all. If you shoot actually some of the skeletons right in the head, or these ones with hats on at least, you do a lot more damage. And the sword isn't always the best weapon, particularly for rollers. Actually a pickaxe can do a fair amount of damage as well. I've seen a lot of designs for rocket ships, and some of them are really cool, but the effort that people are going to when you really cannot control how these things steer, it's just not worth your time or the resources needed. There is hope on the horizon. We already know that steering wheels are going to be added to the game very soon. I wouldn't be surprised if there's massive changes or even more additions made so that you can build airships or make yourself some proper decent monorails. With the balloons and the thrusters being so weak and easily damaged, you could undo a whole lot of good work, and it's just not really worth it. Not until we see some more of them additions. Until then, slapberries are your friend. Absolutely use a bunch of them or make the slapberry juice, and that will certainly get you your stamina up. If you need to get across a big body of water, don't worry, as long as you jump as you're in the water up and down, it doesn't use as much stamina. It does take a while longer, but you've definitely got more chance of getting across larger oceans or lakes. Don't sleep also on the grapple. Once you've unlocked it, it is quite an advanced item. You now get 30 uses instead of the 10 that the game launched with, and I actually think it's a really versatile thing. You can avoid enemies and hopefully jump over them, especially if you haven't got enough heals. And of course you can utilise it to get across the map quicker, especially with a glider equipped, or really get yourself out of danger. Or maybe even just scout out the environment. Later on, if you want to craft the end game charms as well as give yourself some enchantments from the essence table, you are going to need a lot of eggs and a lot of milk. I've said this before and people mocked me in my last tips guide saying you didn't need that many, but clearly they hadn't unlocked the essence table and seen some of the more charms that you can get. So make sure whenever you can or go past, you always go and pet some chickens to get the eggs and milk the cows. But even better, make sure you feed the cows first. If you only drop 1 or 2 vegetables or vines, they'll maybe drop 1 or 2 extra milk. But look what happens when I dropped 18 vines, I ended up getting 4 to 5 milk back. It does look like 10 is the minimum amount for you to try, and you don't want to necessarily drop your whole stack of 60 or something, and just in case they go and munch them all, but you should get a lot more milk back. I did try this on sheep as well, but I only ever really got 1 piece of wool back, and it didn't really work with the chickens. But I'm going to test it out a little bit more. What I was doing was holding the food, wondering why they weren't following me or give me any extra resources. And you can still go and pet them afterwards. If you do try feeding them a bunch of times, eventually they will stop dropping wool. So it is worth making a pen and lure them into it. But do make sure it's at least 2 fences tall, as they can actually jump over 1 fence, or save yourself a lot of faff and use just some basic walls with a doorway. You might not even have all the fences unlocked yet anyway, so this is the quickest and easiest way, and you can always expand it to a nicer enclosure eventually. You've seen in the sandbox mode there's loads of different charms that you can apply, or you may have if you've been spawning in the right items. At first you only got 2, one to help and give your tools more endurance, and the other one to make enemies drop more healing items when you hit them. This will open up and you'll start getting a lot more once you get the end game resources like malachite and rubies and sapphires, and some of these will give you other bonuses like extra loot luck and more damage. So do keep by a little pile of some rough amber nearby, just so that you don't go ahead and waste it all making it into cut amber, so that you can go ahead and apply some of these. Especially now the glitch has gone where you could repair all your tools by destroying a chest when they were placed inside. That's been patched. This is the only way now to make your weapons last a bit longer. I did take one look at some of these and thought it's not worth my time, but obviously with the fixes and improvements to durability, it certainly is worth getting the essence table now. Upgrade your village square as soon as possible. The higher the upgrades, the more resources your villagers will eventually get for you every day. You go from only getting 1 or 2 items to 10 to 20 sometimes of basic resources, and if you ask them specifically to go and get things like food or gems, they'll come back with some of the rarer stuff that might take you a while, especially food, as you can often get pizzas and other items that cost a lot of resources to make. Building a complete prefab will give a lot of bonuses to your village level, which you also need to make sure it's high so that you can actually upgrade to the next level. But it's still a lot cheaper and quicker just to put down a bunch of decor, chairs, tables, any pots, anything you've unlocked like that. That will all increase your village level quite a lot as well. If you put in individual base build pieces like walls and doors, they generally don't increase the overall level as much. So either stick to prefabs and then make sure you actually put decor all around your base if you want to max and min and get your village square upgraded as soon as possible. Take materials for a bed wherever you go and don't underestimate the caves. It should be pretty obvious that different biomes are going to be maybe more dangerous, but the caves are another level. The grass ones aren't too bad, you only have to deal with some rollers and maybe some skeletons. A few scorpions and spiders at most. But desert caves are definitely more dangerous with much tougher skeletons, scorpions and spiders, as well as of course bomber ones like these guys too. They'll blow up, although that can help take out the enemies. And of course you do have to worry about the lava in these caves as well. But it's the snow caves I really wish I'd built a bed directly outside. Not only have you got to contend with the cold temperatures, so you're going to need special charms and spicy burgers. You've then got to deal with the cursed walls, which are incredibly powerful, again, as well as plenty of other skeletal enemies and lots of the frozen spiders and as well scorpions that are a lot more dangerous. These skeletons also lob TNT, making them more of a challenge too, and you always got to jump out of the way whenever you see a scorpion because it will explode into a poisonous gas. So good luck surviving, and make sure you've always got a grapple so that you can get onto some of the taller cliffs in these caves to hopefully also avoid more damage. The best way to survive is absolutely investing in charms. Don't pass up the opportunity to always get better ones, and make sure that you're upgrading your crafting bench so that you unlock the next tier. The ones that give you protection against temperature are really vital for exploring them caves. What I didn't realise for a while was that you can actually stack the same charms though. So if you've got plenty of materials to make at least 3 charms, even if they're all the same, it's definitely worth doing to give yourself them extra defense points. I couldn't really work out how important defense was, but what it's meant to do is reduce overall the amount of damage you take. The higher your defense, if a creature hits lower than that, you'll always take 1/4 of your heart, but if you didn't have that defense, it would take a lot more. When you've got a couple of charms that actually have a higher defense than a few attacks, you won't take any damage at all. Take a look at what happens with this roller when it rolled on me. So that was with a defense score of 6. Now look what happens when I've only got a defense score of 1 and the roller hits me again. So don't sleep on the resistance charms. They will definitely help you a lot, especially when you're taking on some of the toughest enemies, which are the brutes. And that leads me on to my 10th and final big tip that basically I'd made big mistakes on, not being able to take on some of these earlier. I got absolutely wrecked when these were massively overpowered, but they did get a slight nerf, and then afterwards I was still a little bit too scared. Just make sure you've got a decent bow and you've been able to craft absolute hundreds maybe of arrows. If you really want to, you can pretty much stay away using the dodge ability and then shooting and firing in and avoiding most of the attacks. Maybe go ahead and use the grapple if you're getting better, or get up and close and really learn how to dodge. It'll take a while to learn the patterns of how they hit, but generally that ground pound there is the one that you need to avoid the most, so normally you have to dodge twice out of the way just to be sure. The swipes you can dodge in any direction and relatively easier to avoid, and obviously the toxic poison, that can be a killer, but they have just nerfed that. The ground pound is also probably one that you might have to do 2 jumps to get out of the way of. And that can be applied to pretty much any enemy. Yes, it can be overwhelming if you've got lots of high level bandits killing you, but otherwise just keep running around, make sure you can heal up, and always make sure you've got something quick that you can use, as some of the later game items do take up to 6 seconds to go ahead and consume and replenish your health. It's much better to just go ahead and eat or drink something that only takes a second, but I have plenty more of them. But of course, no one's perfect, and that can always happen, so do make sure you've always got a bed equipped very close by. If any of them tips have helped you out, do let me know. What mistakes have you made that you wish you hadn't in LEGO Fortnite? I'm keen to see where this game's going with more content, and I'll be delivering you even more guides and tutorials as we get more updates. Until next time, ratbags, my name's Jade, I'll see you later.